Now, a new study has found that people who exercise only once or twice a week are 25% less likely to develop mild dementia, and people who were regularly active were 11% less likely. So joining me now to talk about this a little bit more is Devi Sridhar, who's Professor and Chair of Global Public Health at Edinburgh University. Very good morning to you. Thanks for chatting to us today. So talk us through what is the evidence there when it comes to physical exercise and how it can perhaps mitigate the effects of dementia or delay them. Talk us through what the evidence is.
Yeah, so we've known that there's a growing body of evidence which links the mind and the body, showing that actually the muscles and brains kind of crosstalk between them. But the latest evidence comes from Latin America. It's a study from Mexico City, which tracked 10,000 people over several decades and looked at their activity patterns back then and then over those years, and then assessed them in terms of their cognitive ability. And what they found is even those exercising once or twice a week, which they called weekend warriors, people who are quite busy during the week, maybe with their jobs, their families, can't get every day into the gym, but once or twice a week managed to do something, actually showed significant benefits in terms of their cognitive ability and delaying dementia. So this is good news for those people who are like, oh no, I didn't get to exercise today, but thinking actually about as a week, during the week, can you fit in 1 or 2 sessions, which is more realistic for the vast majority of people.
And what do you mean by a session? I mean, does a sort of wander around the park count as a bout of exercise, or are we talking kind of an intense couple of hours in the gym?
Well, actually, it could be a long walk on a Saturday, Sunday. It could be a swim. It could be a jog. It doesn't necessarily have to be a brutal CrossFit session or where you're, in a spin class. Obviously, those have huge benefits for cardio and for muscles and all that. But actually, it's really about fitting in some kind of physical activity movement that gets your muscles working. Because what we are seeing is emerging research on myokines. These are produced by our muscles when they're exerted, and they travel up to the brain and exert a protective effect on the brain against degeneration, which is what is at the core of dementia. It's brain mass degrading. And what we see is muscles have a protective effect in terms of producing these molecules that travel up. And so it's an emerging science, but it's quite exciting for those who think, oh, I can't get to the gym at 6 a.m, or, my friends are after work every day out in the park and I need to head home for responsibilities, to say, actually, where in the week can I fit in an hour or two, even if it's a walk, a jog, a swim, a gym session, a yoga class, anything that gets your muscles moving and producing these molecules and hormones.
That's absolutely fascinating, because you don't think of the muscles and the brain being connected like that, do you? I think most people would say, yeah, I can see how exercise might improve my heart health, but your brain health is absolutely fascinating. And what about how late you leave it in life? I mean, if you've been a bit of a couch potato for a long time, can you kind of get exercising later in life and still make a difference, do you think?
Actually, a study last year from the London School of Economics showed that even later in life, the effects are even greater. So they looked at a different metric. They looked at steps every day and hospitalizations. So how many steps are you doing a day? And we know that 10,000 steps has been one that has been referred to, and a lot of people who carry trackers on their wrists are thinking, do I get those 10,000? But they show that even 5,000 steps was enough to get the bulk of the benefit. And the benefit was higher the older that you were. So basically, you're never too late to start. Later in life, those had greater effects in terms of reducing your risk of hospitalization. But it's not just about going into hospital and being sick. It's about keeping your independence in terms of living independently, having the ability to go grocery shopping, get on a bus, go, play with your grandkids, whatever it might be. And so I think we're emergently seeing that actually there are preventive things that we can do for our minds, and they largely do revolve around exercise and movement and physical activity.
And presumably exercise isn't the only factor. There are presumably other risk factors as well. I know that sleep is one of them, isn't it?
Completely, yeah. So the risk factors that they look for in this Mexico City study is they controlled for things that have shown to have an impact: age, education, smoking, alcohol, sleep. One they couldn't control for, but we know as a factor, is genetics. So there are obviously other key factors. They controlled for these in the study from Latin America, and that's how they could pull out the effect of physical activity. But those are all protective effects and things that we can do to prevent early onset of cognitive decline.
Fascinating stuff. Devi Sridhar, good to talk to you, and good to have a little bit of good news to talk about as well. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.